Welcome to this second episode of Jack's Corner, or I should say, this is a redo of the second episode. Tonight we're going to be talking about
This
the
one
Adult
went
Swim.
on for about 4 hours.
Yeah, I should probably explain. Originally, me and Cake Jerry recorded a 4.5 hour fuck fest where we talked about every show that aired on the Adult Swim incarnation of Toonami.
And we,
The
and
prob
we like didn't know what we haven't seen like half the shows we talked about, so it was just very rambly and yeah.
Yeah, like that was a few weeks ago. No, I think it was almost a month ago we recorded that.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So this time we're gonna just redo it. Just instead of trying to talk about shows we clearly haven't seen, we're gonna talk about each year because Jerry here knows a thing or two about Toonami since like you've said, you've researched a,
God, I know way too much about this television's anime block. Kind of sad.
yeah, it is pretty sad. Even though television's dying these days, we still care about it. So,
But yeah, television's dying, but the dream still lives on.
yeah. So we're gonna like cut all the bullshit and just get straight into this discussion. I had a list of each year and I was able to like add, subtitles that I think are able to summarize each year. So for instance, where we'll be starting 2012, I subtitled it Reincarnation, and that's pretty self explanatory. Toonami came back from the ashes like a phoenix bird.
Wait, I think before we talk about 2012, we should talk about the state of Toonami before it got canceled and basically the backstory that led up to it coming back.
Sure. Well, what happened was Toonami got canceled from on Cartoon Network in 2008. It had a big send off that I think a few people saw. There was kind of a void in the action cartoon landscape at that time. Like CN was still producing stuff like Batman the Brave and the Bold and Ben 10 Alien Force, but instead of airing that on like Saturday nights, they moved it to this new Friday night action block that I think that one only lasted a year, but you could pretty much make an entire discussion on Cartoon Network's relationship with action cartoons in the late 2000s and early 2010s. Maybe I'll do that someday, but probably not. So yeah, like things were pretty dire for action cartoons and I guess anime in general when Toonami left. Like DBZ Kai, Naruto Shippuden, those aired on different kids channels. It seemed as though like Toonami was just a distant memory, only held by its like deepest fans and the memories of its deepest fans.
You know, although the death of Toonami back in the day sounded like a really sad and tragic thing, but the thing is, if you actually go back and look at what the block looked at like at that point, it was 2 hours from 9 to 11, and the only new thing they had on there was Naruto, which at that point it was still in the filler episodes, and then I don't know, a Samurai Jack rerun and whatever else. It was kind of dead for basically the last couple years when Naruto was the only thing going for it, and yeah, One Piece. Even when they got the Funimation dub, that was just taken off in the year that it got canceled. So it kind of needed to die so that it could then be like brought back in a much better form on Adult Swim, where with Adult Swim, there wasn't the whole they didn't have to worry about putting on basically toy commercials like Pokemon and I don't know, other bullshit like Stormhawks that they used to put on. And it's a lot there's a lot more freedom. So you generally won't see something like Woolin Warriors on this new Adult Swim block.
Yeah, and Adult Swim was also going through a rough patch with its anime at the time. I think they were airing stuff like Code Geass at really shitty times, like 5 in the morning. And 2009, they had no new anime. I guess, like, in the early part of the 2010s, they only had 3 new anime. I think one, and people were just only tuning in on Saturday nights to watch Bleach. There was really nothing that was setting Adult Swim action apart ever since like its mid 2000s heyday, where it was more or less just a place for shows that were too edgy for Toonami, i.e., shows that if they were to air on Cartoon Network, there would have been a lot of editing. And really, Toonami coming back was a good thing, not only for the branding itself, but also for Adult Swim because it pretty much revitalized their Saturday night lineup.
Yeah, too bad Mike Lazo hates anime. Am I right, guys?
Yeah, he really hates anime. He gets in fistfights about anime aspect ratios.
Yeah.
So, anyway, Toonami has Adult Swim decided to do an April Fool's joke in 2012 where they bring back some of the OG Toonami shows for one night only, like Dragon Ball Z and Gundam Wing and Outlaw Star. And it was a pretty big success on Twitter. There was a hashtag demanding Adult Swim bring the block back, and they did so like about 2 months later. It was great. Even though the initial lineup was pretty stale, the fact that was no, I guess it wasn't the best. The fact that the block was even back in some capacity was a boon to like action fans. I guess Toonami fans in general.
Okay, so if I may talk about like my early history of like learning what Toonami is, I've been like a fan of anime from like a pretty young age, but like I was like 6, almost 7 when Toonami first ended. So like I didn't get into anime until like after that, and it was like through seeing like Naruto Shippuden on Disney XD and Dragon Ball Z Kai on Nicktoons and stuff, and then like one day it was like I guess the day after, or a few days after the April Fool's stunt. Like an old like friend of mine in fourth grade, because that's when it happened, was like, "Hey, did you hear about Toonami coming back?" And I was like, "What the hell is that?" Of course, I didn't say hell because I was in fourth grade, and yeah, he was like, "Yeah, uh Toonami's back and they had Tom, it was like Tom 3, and he reviewed Mass Effect and he said bitch." It was like, whoa, who the hell is Tom? I don't know who that is. So like, I looked it up online and it was like this like mystical block where like all these cool anime series were shown, including Dragon Ball Z and stuff, and I was like, whoa, this sounds pretty cool. And then I learned it was only like an April Fool's thing and wasn't confirmed to come back until it was.
Yeah, I found out about Toonami's resurrection because I tuned in that April Fool's night. I wanted to watch Fooly Cooley, but when I tuned into Bleach and it went to commercial break, I saw this like Tom 3 bump and I was like, "What the hell's going on?" Though I didn't say hell cuz I didn't want my parents to hear me. But I was actually kind of curious as to what was going on. I mean, I should have realized it was an April Fool's gag, but I think most of us had in the back of our minds Toonami might actually be making a comeback, and sure enough, it did. It was a pretty eventful night. I think like you can watch most of that broadcast on like online if you like. I'm pretty sure there's like archival footage of it.
Oh, I went on like archive.org and found like a full like 4 hours of like every show that they played.
Jesus, that's real dedication. But
Yeah, I go on archive.org a lot. They have a lot of like, basically I like to go on there to see like how they used to air like old animes and like how they'd edit them and stuff. I don't know, it's really fascinating to me.
yeah, But with 2012, with Toonami coming back, they obviously didn't have a big budget. And as this year kind of rightfully shows us, they were running on table scraps. Like, most of the shows they pretty much got because they were cheap. Especially, especially in the case of the Cartoon Network originals, they were able to pick up because CN just didn't give a crap about them. Even Naruto, which I would say was their biggest pickup that year, they only just got the original series in the same like shitty shitty video quality they had back in 2005.
Yeah, yeah, at the start it certainly felt like some kind of do-it-yourself anime block with like how obscure the titles were, but I don't know, there's kind of like a charm to like seeing these like obscure titles on TV in a way. And like if you look at Toonami now, you certainly get that sense a lot less considering that as their budget has increased, they've gotten like the rights to these more like mainstream shows like Dragon Ball and My Hero Academia. So like looking back on like the more obscure stuff they showed, like although maybe not all of it was as good as the stuff they have now, it was certainly more interesting in a way.
I mean, I wouldn't say all the stuff they aired during this time was obscure. They had Bleach, they had Full Metal Brotherhood, they had Bebop. But like when they picked up new shows like Samurai 7 or Casher and Sins, this was crap that no one had really ever heard of. I mean, they pretty much fit well on TV, but it's not the kind of stuff that your average anime fan would be seeking out to watch.
Well, I mean, given the curated like feel that Toonami has, it is certain that like Jason and Gil like looked at these shows. Actually, I don't know if Gil like has anything to do with choosing shows, but like Jason at least like looks at these shows and thinks like, man, these look cool. Let's get this out for tons of people to see. And so it's like, yeah, even if they are like cheap and like I guess some would say like bargain bin animes.
Yeah, these were definitely bargain bin. Like, I don't know. I kind of like miss this period of Toonami where it really was homegrown, like you said.
Yeah. And another thing I greatly miss with this era of Toonami is the bumps. Like with the Tom 3.5, like they look like so like slick and high quality. It's like wow.
I like them, but I
Like
remember the bumps they used in between commercials were just repurposed from the Tom 3 era. Like the one with the absolution floating, and I think there was one with a Clyde on this like desolate
well,
planet.
yeah, but either way, like the new ones with like the new shiny looking Tom 3 and like with all the like super fluid like finger animations, it's like good stuff.
Yeah, it is pretty good. So, if you do you have a favorite show from this period?
Hmm. Well, I don't know. I like despite being sort of excited for the idea of Toonami, I didn't really watch like this era of Toonami like at the time like some of the shows like I guess the ones that were carryovers from Adult Swim Action like Full Metal Alchemist and Cowboy Bebop I eventually like watched in recent times, but like at the time like all I remember was like the very second like broadcast that they aired. I remember having it on and it was like well I had a friend over so I wasn't paying that much attention, but yeah, I remember Dead Man Wonderland and how edgy and violent it was and the bleeps like every few words.
Yeah, Dead Man Wonderland was probably a good show to start out with. I mean, I mean, it kind of helps signal that Toonami was now for adults only, even though Dead Man Wonderland's a shonen, ironically enough.
Wait, is it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I actually have the entire manga of it because I guess it was like someone was like, I don't know, friends of one of my uncles, but like I remember meeting him and he like had the entire series and like he just went on about how amazing it was and he wanted to pass it on to me. It was really cool.
Yeah,
I haven't finished it yet, but I started on it over the summer and it's really good. Like the art is wonderful and like it is kind of typical like shonen tropes like with the battles and stuff, but you know, it's good.
yeah. My favorite show from 2012 was Symbionic Titan, and that's probably my favorite Western cartoon of all time. Though, I gotta be honest, I didn't watch this show when it first came out, even back in 2010 on Cartoon Network. I think it was until 2015 that I watched the originals, like, watched the entire series, and I realized this is the best thing ever. Well, I guess second best thing ever, but who's counting?
Yeah. Like that's a show I really need to watch. Like I haven't watched it yet, but I should.
Yeah. So 2012, the most shows that came to the block this year. A lot of it was pretty much cheap, but you got to do what you got to do. So 2013, I titled this one Solidification, and I call it that because this is when Toonami firmly rooted itself into the ground, saying, "We are here to stay, bitches." And we have less shows came to the block this year, but this is the year when Toonami really started to surprise us with all the things it could do. Most notably, bringing back One Piece and somehow securing the rights to IGPX, a show that had originally been written off when it when it originally aired. Bringing back Sarah, all pretty noteworthy things considering that we were already a year into this revived block and there was no way anyone could have predicted this.
Yeah, like yeah, 2013 it was like started, kind of cheap, didn't have much of a budget to like, really growing in terms of like, the type of like all the big name shows they had like One Piece and it was like, like yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
So what do you think of oh no, it's fine. So what do you think of Tom Five's design?
I like it. I've heard people say he's a lot more mature looking, not like a, you know, children's television block mascot. A lot more like, I guess, streamlined, no frills to his design. It perfectly suits Adult Swim. He's a lot more vulnerable, if I can even use that as a descriptor.
Hmm. Oh, so you say he's more vulnerable?
He's more vulnerable looking.
Well, yeah, he's certainly not like, jacked out like Tom 3 was. He's like, yeah, a lot more streamlined and stuff. It's like, I'd say it's like the most like general idea of what Tom would look like. So, yeah,
Yeah,
good design.
it's a pretty good design. And Sarah, as I mentioned, she came back.
Oh, yeah, Sarah was like to this day is like a great addition because, it gives like Tom someone to like bounce off of like in game reviews and stuff.
And besides, it'd be really kind of creepy if Tom was just talking to the audience the whole time by himself.
Yeah, just a robot all alone in space watching anime by himself.
Yeah. 2013 also gave us the most movies out of any year. I think there were about six that aired.
Man, I remember month of movies like uh when they aired Akira and they had like the promo for it and like the voiceover guy was like one of the most greatest animes of all time. And I was like, wow, I need to see this movie. This is like the most important thing that exists. And yeah, I remember like I got like popcorn ready and everything, started watching the movie, and like halfway through I fell asleep and I was like really bummed out when I woke up.
Yeah, I bet you didn't have the West Coast feed.
Oh, I was in Eastern. I was actually in Eastern time at that point.
Yeah, I remember I actually watched that film at a hotel during an anime convention I went to with a bunch of friends. It was I don't remember the experience well, but I remember it was somewhat interesting.
Yeah, that sounds fun. I did stay up all the way for Summer Wars though, which was a really nice, fun movie.
I think out of all those movies, Summer Wars was the best.
Hmm. I'd say, like, I probably appreciated it a lot more at the time. I guess because it was a lot more hopeful and like I guess wasn't quite as deep as Akira was.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty impressive they were able to air Akira. I mean, I don't know what the budget is for movies, but it's probably just as much as like paying for an episode of a show, or maybe more. I don't know.
I think it's like I think Jason once said it was like paying more for something that you're gonna show a lot less than like a TV show, and
Yeah,
that's why they don't really do movies anymore.
yeah, and as we'll get on, we'll understand why they don't do movies so often. But I guess I should probably point this out. 2013 also gave us Sword Art Online.
Incest, incest, it's the best. Put your sister to the test.
Oh yeah, the greatest anime of all time.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when it was airing. I don't think people were arguing about it as much as they were when I guess the second season came out.
I just remember like learning about Sword Art Online before there was like a controversy. I was thinking like, whoa, uh, it's like a it takes place in a video game and it's like a virtual reality. Whoa, this looks cool. And like, I don't know, I guess I watched one episode that like sort of demonstrated the virtual world in a pretty cool way. And I was like, whoa, this is pretty neat. But I never really watched any more of it. And I finally came back to like give it a try recently, and it's like extremely dull and boring, and I
It's
can't get into it.
it's a pretty boring show that's sometimes punctuated by really bizarre stuff. Or I guess like really edgy stuff like,
Oh, it's
groping and
extremely
tentacle
poly.
slugs and I guess like incest. Yeah,
Yep, incest for the wincest.
yeah, typical anime stuff. So
Yeah,
2013,
well,
Toonami was growing. 2014, I think, was the best year this block ever had because it
hmm,
started off really strong and ended off, well, it kind of ended off really weak, but it was still pretty strong.
hmm. Well, yeah, it certainly is like a really strong year. Like you got Space Dandy like at like the start of the year, and like Naruto Shippuden finally came back home. And after going out to war at Disney XD, it's finally back home.
Yeah, like Disney XD had the rights to ship it and they just sat on them, which is why Adult Swim wasn't able to immediately get it when Toonami came back.
Yeah, I guess it's like if it's better that you have it and do nothing with it than your competitors have it.
I
But
think Nick also did
well,
the same thing with Kai.
I don't know. Well, they really capitalized on their time with Dragon Ball because once they finished Kai, they picked up GT and they aired all the movies. Like they treated Dragon Ball really well. I
Yeah.
feel.
I'm
Although,
surprised they never got Dragon Ball, the original series.
hmm, well, I guess it would. They thought it would be like kids wouldn't be as interested in it since it's more comedy and adventure based, and it would feel more like going backwards. Where they thought maybe GT would be more hype, even except no.
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't. I guess like I'm honestly not sure why they dropped it when they did. Like, well, I guess like they aired GT starting in 2012. And I remember they aired it like in this dumb Saturday or Friday night block at like 10, and they'd air it right beside Wild Grinders and Planet Sheen. So I wonder if like the ratings for it dropped. But like either way, they still reran it a ton, like up until they lost it in late 2014.
like it's honestly weird that they would advertise reruns of GT as like new episodes, even though it premiered on Cartoon Network back in I think 2003.
I guess maybe like it was because after GT, like there was no like I know the Boo Saga of Kai came out in Japan that year, but like I guess the English version wasn't available yet for whatever reason, and I guess they had no way to like continue to capitalize on Dragon Ball at the time since it was like before Super and stuff.
Yeah,
So I
but
guess that's dropped the rights.
was honestly a lot better for Toonami since Dragon Ball Z and Toonami are like peanut butter and jelly.
Oh yeah, I agree.
So yeah, we had a lot of really big name titles this year. Space Dandy being like an early example of simuldubbing, Shippuden and DBZ Kai, pretty much continuing those franchises' legacies on Toonami. Black Lagoon probably being the most expletive-filled show on the block. Attack on Titan, probably the first anime that already had a built-in fan base, a really pretty huge built-in fan base to come to the block. Gurren Lagann, everyone knows that show, and Inuyasha, the final act, pretty much concluding one of Adult Swim's most beloved anime. So it was a pretty monumental year for acquisitions, even
You
though
know
the
that
wait, go on.
that Gone pickup was like pretty cool given that the show already had like a shot on like sci-fi like back when it first got dubbed. So the fact that like Adult Swim could swoop in and give it a shot to air on their block was really neat.
Yeah, and I think like with Adult Swim, they were able to get a better reach since
Plus it's like yeah, basically like now Adult Swim has aired like the trifecta of Gainax shows with Ava and then Fooly Cooly and now Gurren Lagann.
and yet they'll never air Panty and Stocking.
Nope, that's not happening.
Yeah, but I gotta say, like, I guess another notable acquisition was Beware the Batman. Yeah, it was another Cartoon Network pickup, but it was the first one where they were able to premiere episodes in America since, like, I think the CN had only aired 11 episodes before shit canning it.
Like I remember like I don't know if I'd call it hype, but I remember like a lot of like pre-release like development like PR was like, man, we like worked so hard on this thing. Like we have like the entire like city rendered as like one thing in CGI, and like we're gonna make it to where like if Batman gets injured, it'll like have consequences for the next 30 episodes. And like it just sounded really ambitious, and like yeah, the show comes out and it just dies.
Yeah, I don't remember it being good, but I guess it also kind of Beware the Batman also kind of highlights a problem that would plague Toonami this year was shows getting written off or just leaving the block for an inexplicable reason. Like Beware the Batman and Symbiotic Titan, they both pretty much got written off for tax purposes by Cartoon Network, meaning that the network couldn't air them anymore. And Hellsing Ultimate also had that whole snafu where like the final two episodes of that OVA couldn't be shown initially until Christmas time.
Wait, I think I read somewhere that like those last two episodes were dubbed like not long before they aired on TV. Although I don't know if that's true, but like that's what I remember
No, that
seeing.
I think that is true because they were released on home video here about 2014, which is when the I guess the first 8 episodes were airing on Adult Swim. I should also point out Hellsing Ultimate is probably the most violent thing AS has ever aired.
Yeah, I never watched Helsing Ultimate when it aired, but I did watch Helsing Ultimate Abridged, and that show was a fun time.
Yeah. But the two OVAs were able to be shown during the month of movies, and holy crap, that month of movies was a disaster.
Month of Movies 2, the We Tried Boogaloo.
They only had, I think, two new movies, plus they just showed some of the ones they had from 2013, like Akira and Summer Wars. It didn't go over well ratings wise. And this was back at a time when ratings mattered more than they do now.
Yeah, it does kind of suck that yeah, they only had like two new movies, and one of them was like a old Dragon Ball Z movie they've shown a million times.
Actually, I think the DBZ they had two Dragon Ball movies that year: Cooler's Revenge, which aired on Cartoon Network, and Broly, which hadn't actually aired on the network. So I guess that was a premiere for
Wait,
them.
had it not aired on the network?
No, it hadn't.
Oh, I remember it aired on Nicktoons Network.
I don't know. For some reason, Cartoon Network never aired all the DBZ movies. Kind of like how they never aired most of the Naruto films.
Uh, well, yeah, that is pretty weird because I could have swore they did. Like, I know they aired Fusion Reborn, but maybe like they like bounced around a bit.
Yeah, so 2014. I mean, I know I said it was pretty kino throughout the year, but man, that last month, that December was not that good. And as we would see in 2015, there would be cutbacks up the ass. Well, I guess at the beginning of the month, which is when they got like shifted from 6.5 to 3.5 hours, and a lot of fans were reasonably upset because they thought Toonami was going to go off the air again.
Which, I mean, all they really cut was like reruns. Like, it wasn't like they removed half of their premieres or anything. It was basically just like meant to streamline the block so that like I guess it wouldn't be as like bloated and it would be a lot easier to manage and not constantly cycle out stuff that like didn't really matter.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of glad they did that. That means we didn't have to worry about staying up till 6 in the morning watching like the 50 millionth replay of Samurai Jack. I mean, I would
Yeah,
definitely.
someone as someone who like militantly sits through the entire block like a psychopath, I am like pretty glad to see that like I don't have to stay up until 6 in the morning to get the whole experience.
So with the shorter 3.5 hour lineup, we kind of got a little bit. I think we kind of got the last true bastion of diversity on the block because we had three long running shonen and three, I guess, more adult oriented anime that could never have worked on Cartoon Network. And the acquisitions we got this year are pretty diverse, or as diverse as things would get at this period of time.
Well, yeah, like we got Kill la Kill this year.
Hell
like
yeah.
I guess continuing the Gynax legacy that actually did Kill la Kill run at the same time as Gurren Lagann?
Well, I guess like I remember Gurren Lagann was at its final few episodes when Killer Kill joined the block, and I thought it was really
Oh,
weird
I
that two anime from the same director were airing. It was like, man, this is what times we're living in.
yeah, that was pretty cool. And of course, we got like other like cool like obscure stuff like Michiko and Hachin.
Yeah, I think like 2015 was also the last year for getting obscure anime, though. That's not to say that other years wouldn't bring us like niche titles, but I think 2015 was the last concerted effort in doing so.
Hmm. Yeah, but speaking of things that sort of stopped in 2015 was the now next later bumps.
Yeah, I
Yeah, that
think.
was a
Wait, did they stop doing those that year?
yeah, because with the 2016 like packaging, they didn't like they stopped making them.
I think they did that because most people have like channel guides on their cable with their with their cable packages like Comcast and DirecTV where you can just see like channel directory and shit. You didn't really need, I guess, blocks to tell you what show was coming up next, even though it kind of did add to the packaging of it all.
Well, I mean, the TV guides had been prevalent for like since the late 2000s. So I mean, I'm not sure why. Like, I mean, even like despite its redundancy, it was still like such a Toonami aesthetic thing. Like, it just feels weird that they would specifically get rid of it.
Yeah, but you let bygones be bygones. Can't really.
I guess with its removal, it meant like more bumps of Tom and Sarah talking. I guess since like they'd have like now we're back bumpers instead of like the timeline bumpers.
Yeah. 2015 also gave us our first total immersion event for the Adult Swim era, Intruder 2, which I would consider the best one so far.
Well, it's certainly the longest and most eventful one so far. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that event was really cool. Like the evil magic velvet rug came back for vengeance with like Tom's corpse, like Tom One's corpse, and they had like the voice of Tom One like do this weird voice sync with the intruder, and it was really like creepy and weird.
It was pretty good. I kind of like the tense atmosphere. I like the callbacks. I'm having Tom One's voice actor come back, and I guess them moving to a desert planet, like weird base thing. I guess it was a nice change of pace, though. I don't know if like most people got Tom 4 flashbacks when they saw him on a planet.
Yeah, but yeah, sadly we lost. This will be the last time we have seen the Absolution,
Yeah,
which had been like the only like ship we'd known for Toonami, and yeah, that's destroyed. And
yeah. So
yeah,
2015
we
was.
also got like
Wait,
we also got like a glitched up Sarah for like by the end of the special, and of course Tom had his weird replacement arm,
yeah, his like 3D clone 3D paper arm, I think.
his 3D printer gone wrong.
Yeah. So 2016, it starts off kind of like 2015 with more niche titles, but as it goes on, we kind of get into the modern day Adult Swim Toonami where they go after where they just premiere like hype shows, whether they be long
Yeah,
run.
although
What?
I feel like the shows they like they're more mainstream, but the shows they got in 2016 were really good, like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which is still going strong, and like One Punch Man, which is like one of my favorite animes, period, and Hunter x Hunter, and yeah, like that was like mostly in the fall, and like they got those. Plus, they got Gundam back for like 100 years. Like that fall season of 2016 was like a huge time.
Yeah, it was a pretty hyped. It was a pretty hype year.
Like,
It's, it's
like it was at that point, like seeing like what the schedule looked like, that made me really want to get into Toonami more and start watching it more religiously, like I do now. Just seeing like all these like huge shows that like I had heard about online that were like really huge deals.
the irony is by 2016 I was starting to kind of lose interest in Toonami. I guess because I was watching anime online and I had nothing against these shows, but I just really didn't have the time to watch them every week.
Yeah, that's fair.
So,
But so another thing about 2016, while I don't really fancy like the desert aesthetic all that much, like it's cool, it looks nice. But, like I don't know, I kind of prefer like space, I guess. But it did have like the most like probably tied with it's kind of a hard line to draw, but like 2016 probably had like the best looking packaging. It's like these CGI bumps where it was like super like white and gray, and like it had like these CGI like deserted planets, and it just looked really nice.
yeah. Speaking of like the graphics, Intruder 3 was this year's Thai event, and I gotta say that whole thing was mistitled. It should have never been called Intruder 3.
Well, I think they meant the intruder was like the little baby worm that got caught in the base.
I think the problem is it leads people to think it's a continuation of Intruder 2 when really it isn't.
Yeah, maybe they were just trying to capitalize on hype. I don't know.
Yeah, but it was okay. I'm not going to trash these things because they're meant to be just, little things in between shows. I mean, you can tell they put a lot of effort into these, but I honestly feel like with this 1 year gap, they probably put not as much into the next two ones, but I'm not really going to complain about that. That's just too petty.
Yeah. So yeah, Intruder 3 was alright, I guess.
Oh, and I also would be remiss if we didn't mention that one thing they did to honor Moltar's voice actor.
Yeah, may his oven stay forever lit.
Yeah, that was. I'm honestly surprised they were able to turn that out so quickly.
Yeah, but it's good that they did though.
Yeah, it's very good. So 2017, we're now getting into the periods of Toonami that you're familiar with, or I guess you've
Oh yeah,
seen all these shows.
yeah. This is like the year that like I really got into it. So it was like yeah, the English dub of Dragon Ball Super was announced around like late 2016, and I was like, man, I want to watch it, but too bad I don't have a cable anymore, really. So thankfully, I had like just recently made a new friend who was like super into Dragon Ball, and I was like, hey, we should like watch Dragon Ball Super together. And like at the time, I think my grandma like had cable and had that channel, and like he'd like come over there and we'd watch it. But then I learned that like I think she like moved, and I learned that he also had like Sling TV at his house, and we would like watch it every Saturday. And then eventually I'd just watch like the other shows on the block at his house. Now I basically just stay the night there every night, and he lets me like watch all of Toonami on his Sling. So
Yeah,
yeah, like I've basically been like caught up on everything since like early to mid 2017. But yeah, this was like a really good year in terms of like lengthening out the block, I guess, because like Dragon Ball Super got the 11:30 slot again after forever, and then Samurai Jack got like the 11 slot, although that was eventually taken off. But then they got like another rerun slot, which eventually the old rerun slot was used for Outlaw Star, I think, and like by the end of the year it was like 5.5 hours instead of like 3.5, I think,
yeah.
or like
Like
or like 5 hours.
2017, they were very exponential with their expansions. It kind of became pretty hard to keep up with what time slots they got back.
Oh yeah, they did get a little out there with like schedule changes, which is still like kind of a thing today. Like it's like you blink and the schedule changes.
Yeah, it's really funny. We'll get to that in a little bit, but I
But yeah,
remember
like
when we originally recorded this, you went on this rant about final chapters. Do you think it'd be okay if you, I guess, went over that again?
oh god, yes. Okay, so Kai is like kind of this amazing like thing that exists. It's like, the first 160 or so, or however long the first three sagas of Z are, like, basically the best part of Z, like condensed into like, you know, 2 years worth of anime on like a weekly schedule, of course. And it's like, all the filler, well, not all the filler, but like, all the bullshit is cut out and, it's streamlined. The voice acting is improved, which is like really good for the English dub because now we have like a more faithful, less like hokey version of Z that like plenty of people have wanted. And it's remastered really well. It looks nice. Like the team that remastered it, like Q-Tech, they like made like new animation to like streamline it and make it look less like cut up and stuff. And it's just like really good. And then Final Chapters comes along, and this was like basically like an afterthought. Like what happened was Kai only went up to the Cell Saga because like merchandise that was specifically branded for like Kai wasn't selling well, so they canceled it. And they only brought it back because like the show that took its place, Toriko, it like bombed. So they took that off the air and they needed something cheap to like throw in its place. So they took like the Boo Saga and made a Kai version of that, but like it was done really bad. So like they remastered it in house instead, and like it's not in 4:3. Like it's not the original aspect ratio like the original Kai was. It's like really bad, like stretched out, cropped 16:9, and like there's this really weird green tint for some reason, and like I don't know, it just doesn't look nearly as good. And uh, there's a lot more like filler in it because of course they're not gonna like add new scenes to streamline it. They're just gonna include tons of filler for some reason. And the so like I remember with the original Kai, like their composer, like his music was pretty good, but then it was found out he plagiarized, so his music was taken out and replaced with like the original Z soundtrack, and like yeah, that got me really into that old soundtrack because it's like, as some people call it hokey, I just think it like can be pretty great at times, and it has like this super specific like aesthetic to it that I enjoy. But they got a new composer for Final Chapters who also does the Super soundtrack, I think. And like the music in Final Chapters is just the worst. I hate it so much. Like there's if you look at like the Majin Vegeta fight, there's like this super tense like violent moment and they start playing this upbeat like dance music and it's terrible. I hate it. And like yeah, the international version, which is what the English dub is based off of, has like 8 extra episodes that is basically filler. And I don't get why they would do that. And like, also, it's the Boo saga. It's like the worst saga. And they just, and like the remastering of it is like even worse than like the better parts of Z. So it's just, yeah, it just sucks.
Yeah, I remember. Like, I mean, it honestly was kind of jarring to see to go from Kai, which was aired in 4x3, which I don't think at the time Adult Swim was really airing their shows in 4x3. They just like stretched out all their older shows so they could fit a
Yeah,
16 by 9 aspect ratio because, Turner's lazy.
Yeah, Dragon Ball Z Kai was actually the first show that they did that with, and it like started like a precedent for Toonami to like air anything that was in 4x3 and produced in 4x3. They would like go out and find the HD masters and air those in 4x3, and Kai pretty much started that. So yeah.
And then with Final Chapters, you think they just forgotten that principle, but no, that was, like you said, that was apparently how it was made. I could never explain why. I could never find out why it has a greenish tint, though.
Oh, it was probably just really lazy remastering on Toei's part because again, it was just like shoveled together to like quickly fill the spot of Toriko and cheaply.
Yeah, I mean, we got stuck with that for over a year, but hey, it's Dragon Ball. But I guess 2017, if we're going to go back to that, also had some other monumental things. The block celebrated its 20th anniversary, and they brought a retro packaging for the month of March. That was pretty neat.
Oh yeah, seeing the pipes was pretty cool though. I don't know. I probably would have like they had a vote on it where like it was that and they had like the gothic style and they also had like I think the Moltar era design, but like who cares? And they also had like the Tom 3 era design that they, which is actually the one that they used back in 2012. And I probably would have voted for that because that's probably my favorite. But like, yeah, the pipes were still like really cool seeing them again.
Yeah. But there was also some shitty stuff that happened during this time, most notably One Piece leaving the block and the April Fool's stunt with Rick and Morty.
Oh man, my friend was like pissed when like that Rick and Morty stunt happened and it skipped that week's episode of Super. Like, well, I was also pissed, but only because it was during the Goku and Beerus fight, and I just wanted it to end because it just like went on and on.
Yeah. It pissed me off. Well, not as much, but mainly because they skipped over a new Samurai Jack.
That's basically how I felt. I was upset about the new Jack being skipped.
Yeah, but I don't know. But yeah, One Piece leaving, that was kind of a big deal because like it had a very devoted following who were afraid it was going to leave the block any moment, and it did.
Yeah, well, at least they had a really nice send off video for it.
Yeah, they did. There's really no way that One Piece could ever work here in the States.
Yeah,
Even
like I mean, on Toonami, it's like it had such a rough history on TV in general because it started with the really bad four kids dub, and that went on for the first like 100 or so episodes, and then then it got picked up by Funimation, who like they started airing that on TV in 2007, but like Toonami was in such a dismal state at that point that they just had to take it off. And then like you're finally and then with Toonami like finally back in like a good state to like air it again, they pick it up, but it's like, only at episode 200, and it's still like way behind even the DVDs. And it's like they're just like too many episodes to really like air it like once a week.
I'm also against the notion that it's easy to jump into One Piece, mainly because One Piece is so reliant on its continuity that you have to start at the beginning in order to understand what's going on.
Yeah, although I remember like even if I didn't know what was going on, like One Piece was a pretty good show to like, just jump into an episode and take in like the atmosphere of like whatever strange land they find themselves in, and like, you know, like it had a nice adventure aspect that I really like as like an outsider looking in.
Yeah. So 2017 ended with, I guess, the most current total immersion event, Countdown, which I'll give them props for not titling it Intruder 4.
Yeah. Yeah, I was really like hyped for Countdown because it was the first TIE that I actually like got hyped for and like anticipated and like watched every week. And it was like yeah, the like it was like really cool, like the time travel plot and like the suspense of it, and like not to mention it was just a really great like emotional like story about Tom and Sarah's relationship. And yeah, plus it gave us like the banged up Tom that we see now.
I'm honestly surprised that we still haven't had a tie that's given us a Tom 6.
Oh, you know what? I've speculated a lot about a Tom 6, and I honestly like a part of me feels like we won't get one, like because like not only is the current Tom like just like the most average like just Tom you could make, but it's like I don't know if it's in Toonami's budget to just make an all new design for Tom. Plus, like, how would they do it? Like, would it still just be Tom with like a different, more cutting edge looking design, or like would they like I don't know. Hopefully, like I would hope that if there's a Tom 6, it's nothing like too drastic in terms of like changing like I don't know. I guess as long as it's the same character and Sarah's still there, then I'm down with the Tom 6.
Well, all I know is if they do Tom 6, they won't give him a face.
Yeah, they probably won't. It would be too expensive to animate anyways. But yeah, can't wait for the next total immersion event. Tom gets cancer.
Oh, God. Okay, so now we're in the most current year, 2018, which is almost over.
Current year.
Yeah, which is almost over with. I mean, we already know how it's going to end with two lame ass marathons. But
Hell yeah. I like how the Dragon Ball Super marathon is happening at like the worst time because the whole marathon is gonna be like basically all of the buildup that happens before the tournament of power. So like all the boring episodes you have to wade through before you finally get to the tournament.
yeah, 2018 started off really slow. They didn't get anything new until I believe May with My Hero Academia.
Yeah, it was like such a like dry spell for those first few months. Like there's supposed to be a new show in January. Uh, I guess it was supposed to be My Hero. I'm not sure, but there was like yeah, basically nothing up until that May. But that May, that was like a really huge thing because I remember like I really wanted to watch My Hero, but I was like holding out for it eventually coming to Toonami instead of just finding it online and watching it. And like I remember like a little bit before it was announced, I kind of just like I was like, you know what, it's probably not gonna happen. I'm just gonna look the show up and just watch it to get caught up because season three hype and stuff. And lo and behold, it just all of a sudden got announced.
Yeah.
Yeah, like yeah, I think like someone tagged me the Facebook post where it was announced, and like I could like barely believe it.
Yeah, it was a pretty big announcement. So 2018 kind of continues what 2017 did by giving us big shows like Diamond is Unbreakable and Boruto, but also kind of started giving us a little bit more diversity with what types of anime we were shown, like Pop Team Epic, which was a really really bizarre comedy that I love, and Megalobox, which is a full-on sports anime, albeit with a sci-fi twist.
Yeah, I agree that Pop Team Epic was like a really good um like idea. It was a really good idea, even though it's like not an action show at all. It's still like I don't know, gave the block a lot more of a varied feeling to it. Like it wasn't all just action shows. Like it had like this, zany comedy show to like even out the pace. And yeah, I like really enjoyed Pop Team Epic's run, and like I'm glad that they brought it back for reruns.
Well, I'll say Pop Team Epic is a better show to air on Toonami than Tenchi GXP.
Oh, oh, jeez. Yeah. Also, Boruto was such a surprise. Like, because Naruto is still, like, it's been on the block for almost 6 years. And it has, like, or not, shoot. No, it would be almost 5 years, uh, like coming up in a couple weeks, but, like, it's still only halfway there. So, like, people have speculated if Boruto would be on the block at all, or like if it would replace Naruto or something. But like I don't know, it just showed up and here it is,
I mean,
premiering of episodes. And it's premiering English dubbed episodes instead of airing like episodes that were released on DVD like 4 years ago.
it makes sense to have them both run air at the same time. If they were to just continue airing Shippuden without getting Boruto, then Boruto would have joined the lineup in, I believe, 2024 if Toonami's still around by that point.
Yeah, but yeah, and like I really wasn't expecting them to like bring Shippuden like when Boruto premiered. They just took Shippuden from like the 2 a.m. slot and just threw it all the way up to like 10 in the evening. It was like pretty crazy.
Yeah, but that didn't last long, now did it?
Oh god. But yeah, I just want to talk about like the 7 hour primetime Toonami experiment that where they had a 7 hour block starting at like 9 in the evening. And like I mean, like having Toonami on so early was like such a cool thing. Like it was nice, like, tuning in at like what would be 8 o'clock my time, and, you know, having like uh, Kai come back from the beginning was really nice because I hadn't really watched the old Kai in forever, and yeah, it was just really nice having this nice long block that didn't have too many reruns in it, just about five, and yeah, but
Yeah. Well, I mean,
good just don't last that long, I guess, you know.
I guess the problem was they didn't have enough like strong shows to justify starting at 9 p.m. with. They had Kai, but that was just reruns, and My Hero Academia wasn't really setting the world on fire ratings wise.
Yeah, and Shippuden certainly wasn't selling 10 o'clock in the evening.
Yeah, I think they were back in filler.
Oh yeah, it was like it's kind of similar to when they tried like 8 p.m. One Piece reruns, and it was right when they were hopping into another bullshit filler arc. So,
Oh God, I
and
remember
like,
when they aired One Piece at 8.
yeah, and the same exact thing happened to Shippuden because they did it like right when it was exiting like the five Kage Summit arc, and they're going into the bullshit Naruto and friends go on a pirate ship adventure arc or whatever.
Like, yeah.
So,
I mean, they'll always the Toonami crew will always defend like filler, mainly because they have to pay for like they pay for the show, they have to pay for everything, including filler. But man, it really does like fuck up ratings.
well, also, when DeMarco was explaining like why they like went back on the experiment, uh, he was like he basically before 11 o'clock at night. So it was like, I guess, I don't know, I guess, I don't know what by performance if ratings don't matter as much anymore because I believe it was still like shows were still trending on social media and stuff, but I don't know, I guess ratings mattered at least a little bit. Well, okay, so I think I remember looking, it was either like the first night after like they announced they were changing the schedule again or like the basically the last night that they would have the schedule, but I think most of the ratings were in like the 200 to like single 100,000, like all around.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how Adult Swim is doing on Saturdays compared to their competitors, but I'd say they're doing marginally better.
Well, like throughout most of the year, DeMarco has talked about like um how like despite how bad it looks, they've still been doing like as good as they need to compared to everyone else. So I guess like this like big late night or not late night, but this long like prime time lineup was just like an experiment that they tried, but I guess didn't work out. But I mean, it's not the end of the world. I mean, we still have like a 6 hour schedule, which is like the length it was before the schedule got cut down way back in 2015. So things are still going pretty strong. It's just now you got to stay up a bit later and yeah, I guess if you really want those ship it and reruns, you can stay up till 3 in the morning.
Yeah. So I guess now we're going into 2019. We know that the schedule is now from 11 to 5. Do you think that they'll continue to go down this path where they'll try to get more non-action anime?
Uh, I think, I guess by non-action, I don't think they're gonna go slice of life or anything.
Oh,
I wouldn't.
definitely. They're not going to go like Moe Blob.
It's gonna be like, I think Megalobox. I know it's action, but if you consider it more like a sports anime, that's kind of what I'm expecting. Like sports, maybe like uh I don't know, like more horror type stuff, that would be perfect. Like, hmm, like maybe like uh less like super actiony sci-fi. That would be interesting. But yeah, stuff that still has like, a narrative with a lot of stakes or something.
I know that 2019 we're going to see a lot. I guess some of the long running shonen are going to end, most notably on Super and Hunter x Hunter. Do you think that they'll try to, I guess, go after more long running shonen, or will they just go after shorter shows?
Hmm. Well, apparently like when there was like an interview that Jason had. This is more about Super specifically. Like I'm sure they'll be fine when Hunter x Hunter leaves, but I remember like when like the interview was when around the time Kai was ending, there was like a debate in the staff about whether to like just start Kai over or like find something to replace it because was essentially like uh Toonami's like money maker at the time, and so they weren't sure if they wanted to like let go of it just yet. So I have a strong feeling that if Dragon Ball doesn't come back in anime form for like, when Super ends on Toonami in 2019, I feel like there's going to be a similar panic like, do they get rid of Super or what? Although they'll probably start it from the beginning. Maybe, well, I don't know. Because if they start it from the beginning, then that'll be another two, another 2.5 years, and the Dragon Ball will probably come back like in that time frame.
Like if
So who
they
knows?
like if they do decide to bring it back, I hope that they don't put it at the beginning because as we all know, reruns at the beginning of the block is cancer.
Basically, I mean, I don't mind them personally, but like, yeah, they do have a bit of a history of not doing the best in ratings.
And there's also Black Clover. I have no idea if they're going to stop airing it after the initial 50 episodes, if they're going to continue with it.
Oh, they're definitely gonna continue with it because the English dub is still like being made past that point, and I don't see why they'd stop.
Yeah, I mean, it is theirs. I remember them saying that they have no problem with Black Clover, even though a lot of people don't like it.
Well, I mean, it's probably the same case with like Sword Art Online. Like, they probably don't think it's the most amazing thing ever, but like, I think with Black Clover, Funimation came to them with like the deal, because I guess this is it was part of the push to make Black Clover like basically manufacture it to be the next Naruto, I guess, because there's like a huge push for it, and I guess getting it to Toonami was like Funimation's part of the deal. And I don't know, I guess they kind of liked it when they first watched it, but it was obvious that like when it got moved from like a surprisingly decent like 11:30 slot at the beginning to like airing at like right before Hunter x Hunter, it was like obvious that, wasn't like doing that great.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I know that Black Clover has its fans, and I don't think it's like Sword Art Online, whereas like that was controversial. Black Clover is just very derivative, which is why people don't really like it.
I don't know. Like, I don't know. I've hated on Black Clover a lot, but I don't know. It's certainly a lot less like just boring and unbearable. Well, it is kind of boring and unbearable a lot, but it's probably better than Sword Art Online in terms of like enjoyability.
Yeah,
But I guess
I'd
that's
say
just my
that.
take.
There's also, I guess, like anime alliances. The Crunchyroll Funimation thing ended not too long ago, and with Toonami and Crunchyroll now being owned by the same, I guess now being under the same corporate umbrella, people are wondering if Funimation is going to stop like sending their shows to Adult Swim.
Hmm. Well, wasn't there also like a deal that Funimation made with Hulu?
Yeah, I think they did.
Yeah, I haven't read much about that, but a lot of people are apparently looking at it and saying that like Funimation and Toonami are over or something, which I kind of doubt. But again, I haven't looked into it, and yeah, hopefully nothing is too different given that Funimation owns Dragon Ball, and of course, we need that on Toonami.
And from what I heard, I think it only affects streaming, so it's not going to affect television. And Funimation loves having their shows air on TV, which is why they're such good partners with Adult Swim.
Plus, the Crunchyroll alliance certainly is really uh like really is a good thing for Toonami because that's basically the reason we got Mob Psycho 100 this year.
Yeah, I think in the coming year we'll probably see more of this, like, I guess, synergy between Toonami and Crunchyroll. Maybe we'll get more than one CR title on the block.
What other CR titles are there that fit on Toonami?
I don't know. I don't really pay attention to this stuff. What I do know is that Toonami and Crunchyroll are working on a Blade Runner anime.
Oh yeah, I heard about that. There, like, it has a lot of the same cast as or not cast, but like the same like people who worked on Standalone Complex, which is funny because there is a third Standalone Complex getting made, but it's going to Netflix. So it's sort of like Adult Swim is making their own version of a standalone season three, even though it's Blade Runner.
And Blade Runner came first.
Yeah, and Blade Runner is basically the progenitor of Ghost in the Shell. So kind of goes full circle in
Yeah,
an interesting.
we are full circle.
But oh yeah, speaking of Crunchyroll, it would be really neat to see Space Patrol Lulu Co. And like, I mean, basically, I know it's like episodes are 7 minutes in length, but it's like so basically, if you like made it into 22-minute episodes, it would be like I don't know 3 episodes. So I'm honestly not even sure if it would work or if Lulu Co needs to be in like 22-minute blocks, but I don't know. It would be neat to see it on Toonami for like a time at
If
least.
if they did it, they could air it like, Sand Whale and Me, where they would show it before the beginning of the block.
Well, yeah, but like it's 7 minutes though. Wouldn't that be kind of stretching it?
I think it
Ten,
would. Maybe it would be better if they just aired 3 episodes in a half-hour time slot.
yeah,
So
but
I guess this whole discussion is wrapping up rather nicely. Do you have anything else you want to say, Jerry?
uh, I don't know. All I have to say is if Gridman gets on Toonami, I'm gonna piss.
That ain't that the truth. So
Yeah, 'cause not only is it more trigger, but like seeing like a tokusatsu series get represented in anime form on Toonami would like make my day.
yeah. So here's to high high hopes for Toonami in the coming year. Hopefully they don't get canceled. I
Yeah,
mean, even if it did, I'd probably be just like, whatever.
I mean, huh, I don't want to like start any commotion, but it has seemed lately that like I don't know something about Jason has seemed a bit more cynical, but I mean, I probably shouldn't look too much into it because I mean, Toonami has all these premieres, Blade Runner anime getting produced, but I don't know. Maybe it's just Jason getting sick of the trolls or whatever because they can be really annoying.
Yeah, the trolls are pretty irritating.
But yeah, Gridman for Toonami, and also I hope Shippuden is okay, airing at 3 in the morning.
Yeah. Everyone's got to have their Naruto fix. So, with this out of the way, this concludes this redo of the second episode of Jack's Corner. Hopefully, next time we can continue to improve on things as I have a bunch of ideas planned for this shindig. And and as a wise philosopher once said, you can all go die in a hole.